I'm not really into making videos, but I just cannot help not to express my concern on Mr. Duterte's intention to give three vital positions of his government to the communists. Every time you enhance the power of those communists or you empower any of those Bangsamoro rebel groups, the next president or the next administration will have to suffer. Now, what happened to SAF 44? Well, they went into a territory where they are supposed to ask permission from the MNLF, and that is why they did their operation in a super secret way, hoping that they can get out of that place before they are known to have gone there. So why do our own policemen or our own soldiers need permission to go into certain territories in our own country while apprehending dangerous terrorists? Well, that is because of the arrangement between Ramos and the Bangsamoro rebel groups back in the 90s, where they are granted the so-called ARMN, or whatever you call that autonomous region agreement. Prior to that point, our soldiers and our policemen can go anywhere in the Philippines because there is only one authority, and every people, regardless of culture and religion, will have to submit to the same one national authority. But now, sadly, our own policemen cannot go into this territory that are allotted and given and granted to the MNLF because we empower them. During the Ramos administration, the Bangsamoro rebel groups tried to behave because they know that Ramos is friendly to them and they took advantage of that, but they did not intend to surrender. While they are talking peace with Ramos, they were also building their military. They purchased more weapons, they strengthened their ranks, they trained themselves, and they didn't even use the money that were allotted to them for development, for water system. They used the money to purchase more military equipments and military weapons. And they know that because they know that once Ramos is out of office, then they will continue to pursue their goal. And their ultimate goal is the total separation of Mindanao from the Philippines. And that will never change because they believe that they are a different kind of people and that they should govern by themselves. We can only believe them that they are serious and sincere in having a compromise and in granting peace if they are willing to lay down their weapons and abandon their armed struggle and willing to talk peace with us. But they will never do that. Even in the time now with Duterte in power, they will never, I will bet you that they will never surrender their firearms, they will never surrender their weapons, they will never stop the armed struggle. They will just stop the operations and live in peace for a while. But once Duterte is out of office, then the next president or the next administration will have to suffer to fight a much, much stronger enemy, a much, much more dangerous enemy. It has also happened with the NPAs back in the time of Cory Aquino. When Cory was in power, they were able to bluff her into granting them the legalization of the CPP and the NDF. And several communists were appointed into OIC positions in the local government and in the national government. What was the result of that? Well, the result of that is that the CPP and the NDF people were free to roam around the city and they gather intelligence, they purchase weapons, they strengthen the NPAs who are the comrades in arms who remain in the mountains, and then they started assassinating policemen and soldiers. And if you recall, in the 80s, there were so many policemen and soldiers who were killed by the NPA's paro units. And that became possible because they legalized the NPA, who are their own comrades. So, what saved the day for Cory was that Gringo Hunasan launched a kudeta, and it opened the eyes of Cory Aquino, and he changed his views about how to deal with the communists. Because there is no way that these communists will surrender their weapons and will stop the armed struggle. They will momentarily talk peace when they say that it is advantageous for them, but like the Muslim rebel groups, they will use that time to continue building themselves and empowering themselves and training themselves and purchasing firearms. And that will also be the same thing with Duterte now in power. These communist rebels will never lay down their weapons will never abandon the armed struggle. And while they live in peace now and empower themselves, when Duterte is out of office, then the next president or the next administration will have to suffer the consequences because they will be fighting a more powerful enemy, a more dangerous enemy. And this communists will never stop until they gain their ultimate goal, which is the establishment of a communist government or at least a socialist government in the Philippines. That is the goal of Joma Sison, and that is the goal of all the communists who became socialist in other countries in Asia, like in Vietnam and in China before. If you look at China now, it's not purely a socialist country because they opened themselves up to a form of semi-capitalism. But prior to that period, they were socialists, and when they were socialists, they were dirt poor. They only became successful when Deng Xiaoping opened up and started a regime of what maybe we can call a semi-capitalist or something that is not a pure socialist country. However, the communists in the Philippines, their ultimate manifesto is either a full communism or a hard socialism because they believe that foreign capitalists and foreign investors are the ones who made our country poor and who caused the suffering of our people. And you cannot change that belief because it is indoctrinated in their brains and it's indoctrinated in their ideology. So, Mr. Duterte, if he will not learn the lessons of history, if he will not learn from other countries, then he is bound to repeat it. And he may not be able to live long enough to see the consequences of his act. It will be the future generation who will suffer for this if he will not learn and change his view on how to deal with this communist and these other Bangsamoro rebel groups.